All right, so we have here today is Ronnie Ashmore, one of DSP's top-selling author in the past few months, which is on his way to the very top. So, Ronnie, tell us about yourself.
Well, I write westerns and crime fiction, and I enjoy the westerns uh, a lot. I like writing those. My background is law enforcement, and I've spent 20 some odd years as a police officer. And I wrote my first book probably 6 years ago, 6 or 7.
Very good. 6 years to just about top of the charts right now. That's quite the move.
It's been a fun little trip.
So tell us a little bit about your new book coming out here. I believe it's Bo Hawkins and it's Texas Ranger Bo Hawkins. And we changed the title last night, so it's now A Tarnished Legacy. Tell us a little bit about what's
Tarnished
going on.
Legacy. It's book 4 of the Bo Hawkins series, which follows a Texas Ranger on the trail of the outlaws that killed his family and what he does to track them down. Sometimes it's righteous and sometimes it's not, but it's always interesting. And book four delves into him being in a little town and having to teach a young lawman how to be a good lawman. So he goes into trying to teach him the ropes.
Well, with the name Tarnish, it would imply that something has gone slightly wrong with Bo here.
Well, something's going slightly wrong with somebody. They're going to have to read that to figure out who and what. So,
Always a good time.
yeah,
Tell us about your writing process with this new book.
the writing process is get up early, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, go right until till daylight or so, till it's time to come to work. And then in the evenings, I write again until it's time to go take a shower and go to bed. So that's my day.
Starting and ending with writing, can't complain about that.
Yeah, well, sometimes you can because you start way too early. You start way too early, and sometimes you are sleepy. But yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way it goes.
Where do you get ideas, well, with your how you make your stories?
I don't know. It just
Just
happens.
pops
What
up.
is this situation? Yeah. Ooh, this situation. Which which of the many characters do I have that would fit in that situation?
As a crime author and lawman yourself on things, how do you go about going into the West for doing things that having kind of a procedural standpoint, I assume, in mind? How does that translate into your writing?
It translates fairly easily for the Western because you got a crime, you still got to get the proof to show who did it. It's just back then their ways weren't as advanced as what we are now. And so the process is still the same, a little bit more slimlined. You just follow that.
You look at somebody, you have a hunch, and
Yeah, you don't like the way they look, you just go in and shoot them down in a bar. That's the way it is. No, not really, but
I think the judge might have an issue with that one,
yeah,
but
yeah, you might get a tarnished legacy that way.
oh,
But
potential hint.
yeah, it's a process, but you just got to know and figure out what that process was for that time.
How much of your time goes into researching what the particular era you're writing about?
Quite a lot. I mean, there's not a whole lot of research, but there's quite a lot of time spent on, the terrain and the towns that were around or what was going on. Did a train run through here? Did it not? What was the stage like? Some of that stuff never makes it into the story, but it's good background stuff to have.
Good to know because the fans tend to be pretty well educated on that and will ask.
Western fans are the most knowledgeable readers you will ever find because, you may be able to BS your way through a crime novel with some of the procedures and the things the good guys do and all that. But if you're writing a Western and you get a saddle stirrup wrong, or if you get the pistol wrong or something like that, that'll haunt you forever. So
How many
yeah,
hours a day do you
it's
write
fun.
books?
I don't really know hours. Probably six, between 5 and 6 hours a day, all total, 6 days a week.
Sunday you'll be you're just gonna be relaxing then?
Sunday, Sunday, I'm not doing anything. And because I get up and write so early, I usually have the days to do what I want to do, Saturday, whatever. But yeah, it would average out to about 5 or 6 hours a day.
It's hard for people to get that regimented to set aside time to be able to write. I think that's one of the main things for starting authors. Any general recommendations for somebody wanting to get into writing, how they can manage to get themselves organized?
Find what your routine is. For me, it's getting up early. For others, it may not be starting until 9 o'clock in the morning. But whatever that routine is, do it and don't skip it. Whatever time you set aside that you're going to write, I'm going to write 5 days a week, 4 days a week. Do it 4 days, 5 days, whatever it's going to be. And pretty soon it'll be a habit to where, okay, I need to be writing. I shouldn't be sitting here watching TV and messing around. I need to be writing.
Is there
Very
some
true.
certain situations where it keeps you away from writing your book?
Like if
Let's see.
life gets in the way. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Last year there was a situation that put me out of commission for 2 or 3 months. I got sick and was in and out of the doctors and out of the hospital and stuff like that. So that threw me behind uh, on a lot of the stuff I do. Usually because it's so early and it's late at night, there's not a whole lot of things going on at that time. So I'm pretty free to do what I need to do during the day.
Yeah, hopefully not too many people calling you at 3 in the morning.
I didn't hear him.
Oh, it was just commenting that there are not too many people calling you at 3 in the morning, hopefully.
Hopefully not, but it,
Death and the
it happens
police, but
occasionally.
yeah.
It happens occasionally, but usually I like writing at that time because it's real quiet and I have to have it quiet. I can't not have interruptions. So,
What was your hardest scene to write?
well, it wasn't in any of the most recent books. There was a scene in Family Secrets that was pretty tough to write, and it's a major twist in that book, and it was pretty hard to write about that. And that was probably the toughest one I've written about. And Family Secrets was my first book.
Since you've been writing for 6 years, how has your overall writing procedure changed since your first real foray into it? Because you're getting things out pretty quick these days, and they are obviously getting very good traction.
I'm more disciplined now than I was early on. It took me a long time to find my niche writing time, my perfect writing time. It took a long time for me to discover that because I don't like getting up at 3 in the morning. But it seems to work better for me.
Anything changed since you started hitting the top 10 of all of the best-selling charts?
Well, the pressure to stay on there, to stay doing that with the various genres is there, and that's a good feeling. Nothing's changed yet.
How long on like average does it take you to write a whole book?
Probably 2.5 months to write uh, one of the major books, and then the Bo Hawkins books. I turn them out pretty fast. I can get them out probably in a month and a half, 2 months.
I mean, you're obviously very Western influenced, I can tell by, with the wagon wheel hanging behind you, your hat you got, stuff like that. How did you get into Westerns?
It's all I've ever read. I mean, the first book I read was a Western by Louis L'Amour when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and absolutely loved the genre, the cowboy code, if you will, and all that. And it's all I've ever really, all I ever, I always knew if I wrote books, I was going to write Westerns. I can't write fantasy. I don't do horror because I can't write horror, but I can write a Western, and that's what I love.
Certainly, yeah. You've proven you can write a Western and people seem to really like them.
Hmm.
I'm glad they do because I really enjoy writing them.
What do you see happening for Bo Hawkins in the future? He's training a new ranger right now. Where do you see him going in the long run here?
Well, hopefully he'll find what he's looking for, whether that's the rest of the outlaws or something else that might make him happy in the future. I'd like to see him keep going, multiple more books, more books. So we'll just have to see where his trail takes him. I have no idea. I don't have it planned out. I don't never know what's going to happen
So
one
you're
book to the other.
you're not an in-depth planner.
I'm not even a shallow planner. I'm, I'm, I'm more of a, oh, I didn't know this was going to happen. So let's see what happens now. That kind of exploratory discovery writer.
Do you find your characters talking to you and telling you what you're supposed to be writing?
I find that if I get off track, they come and visit me and say, "Dude, this ain't me. You're talking for me. Let me do the talking." So, and that's always a good thing.
Indeed, yes.
It makes you sound like you need medication for something, but it
Oh,
seems to work as far as storytelling goes.
I find it extremely common of authors that I've spoken to, literally hundreds of them have the characters talk to them.
Right.
Not unusual in any way.
Right.
Just sounds
Uh,
weird when you're talking about it over dinner or something.
correct. Correct.
So how do you decide the titles for your books, or does it come in the process while you're writing it?
Yeah, I don't know the title until a phrase or something is said or done inside the book that, oh, that's what this book is. That's what this book is about. The title of this last one, Tarnished Legacy, is something that another character says to one of the main characters. It was in passing, but it turned out to be good enough for the title.
That's a good way of getting one, actually. Yes.
It's worked that way the whole time as I've been writing, so it'll always come to me. I don't know what it is.
Do you start off with a specific scene in mind for a book, or how does the inspiration hit you for these?
So you start off with your first sentence, your first scene, and it may not be the first scene in the final book. It's just that first scene to get stuff rolling in your mind, to get the process rolling. And then in the editing, you may rewrite it 3 or 4 times. But it's always an opening scene, and it may change from an office setting to a bar, or it may change from the prairie to a saloon rewrites, but there's always that opening scene.
What do you enjoy writing the most?
I enjoy the westerns the most. I like the westerns the most, but I do have to say I've got a series about a private investigator that I really like. This dude, Joe Langley, is a solid but troubled guy, and I like writing his stories a lot. So that would be a toss up. If you told me I could only pick one to write this year, it would probably be the private investigator novel. But nobody's told me that, so I'm going to keep writing all of them. So
Oh, please keep writing. Yes.
yes, yes, yes. But I enjoy the westerns the most.
Do you travel to the places where that end up in your books?
I wish I had the time to do that. I research a lot, and a lot of it, all of the westerns, except for 1 or 2, have been set in Texas. So there's not a whole lot of looking into stuff that you need to do as far as terrain and stuff. But you do consult maps and things like that. So I wish I could go visit most of the places I write about. One of these days I will.
Always a good road trip. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What do you like to do when you're not writing?
I like to play golf. I like to go to the beach. I like to just generally hang out and I read a lot, but I don't read as much as I used to. Golfing and beaching and reading, I'm happy.
So when you do all those things, does some scenarios that you can write in a book comes popping up?
Well, I don't write nothing down. If it stays around till I get back to the computer, then it was meant to be. But if it disappears on the 18th green, then it was never a very good idea anyway. So
The good ideas stick with you. Yeah.
yeah, that's what Stephen King said. So. And I stole a lot of what I do, and when you're young and trying to form your own path, you steal from everybody that you can't borrow. You borrow from everybody that you can.
You learn from the
And
masters.
that's right. So Stephen King, Dean Koontz, those are 2 of my favorite writers. And actually, the late Robert Randisi is the one that told me to write often, write a lot. Everything you're working on, write every day in it. And he wrote over 400 books. I mean, he was very prolific. I told him there was no way I could do that, but I'm trying.
Yeah, some of them I know, some of the authors, they put out like one book like a week. I mean, it's like they're running like 3, 4 different series simultaneously, but we get one like every Friday. It's like, wow, okay. That's just a machine.
Do not know how they do that. I don't know how they do that and keep their juices flowing. I mean, I consider myself a fast rider, but that makes me look like I've got writer's block.
Well, in fairness, they take like a month and a half to write each one, but they're working on 5 different novels simultaneously, which I'm not sure my brain would be able to deal with.
I'm getting vapor locked just listening to that. I don't know. I don't know. That's a lot. That is a lot.
So do you
So
believe in a writer's block?
I want to say no because I don't think I've ever had writer's block. I've had problems with my narrative because of something I did. I wrote myself into a corner or something, and then when you go back and edit, you rewrite it, it goes away. I've never been blocked to the point where I couldn't write for months and weeks and years and stuff like that. So I would say no. I would say your routine, your daily thing, your daily schedule takes care of a lot of that. In my opinion, I don't know, but I don't believe in it.
It's been my experience talking to people that, yeah, if you have a routine and a set way of going about things, that it doesn't tend to happen to them. It's more when people are getting started and they're not really sure, or they have a major life thing happening simultaneously that it can happen. But if you have I write between here and here and this time in the morning and it gets done.
I think routine is good. I think routine is what the foundation of the business is all about as far as being a writer. You have to have the routine. You have to have your things that you do. I mean, everybody has a routine, even the top sellers. Stephen King has a routine. Dean Koontz has his routine. Elmore Leonard has his routine. So there's a lot to be said for having that.
When do you realize that you wanted to be an author?
Probably high school, because I read every Western I could. And some of them were really, really good, and some of them were really, really bad. And I thought, I can tell a story like this. I mean, I can do as good as this. I couldn't at that time, but I thought I could. And I started dabbling in trying to write in high school. And then in college, I got some short stories published, stuff of that nature, all in the Western format in the magazines, e-zines, whatever it was back then. About 2019, I sat down and wrote my first book, which was a crime novel. It wasn't even a Western, and it did pretty well. And I thought, well, I want to give this Western thing another try. And that produced the first Western was Last Stand for a Bad Man, which opened a ton of doors for me. And as far as other Western writers and stuff went.
Do we have can you give us a quick 30-second rundown on the new book and where we can buy it from you?
So A Tarnished Legacy takes you into the continuing adventures of Bo Hawkins as he tracks down the Evans brothers. In this one, he's trying to teach a young city marshal the ropes of how to be an effective city marshal. And you can buy it at Amazon and any place else you can find your ebooks, I'm sure. Or you can get it at my website, ronnieashmorebooks.com.
Well, Ronnie, we appreciate you taking the time today to come along and talk to us and wish you the utmost success, not just for the selfish reasons of being with the publisher, but that you keep going really, really well and everything.
Well, I'm hoping it keeps going.
You keep
We'll see.
writing and keep getting success. It's a good thing.
I'll try. Thank you.